This is Mark Bell from SuperTraining Gym. SuperTraining Gym, the strongest gym in the West. And I'm here today with Nsima Iyang.
Close enough.
Did I do okay?
Nsima Iyang, yeah.
How do you spell all that?
Nsima Inyang.
All right, hopefully everybody got that. Nsima and I are going to talk a little bit today about intermittent fasting. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring him in on some of these videos is just to give you a different perspective. And let's face it, the guy's jacked. Tan part, he smoked that too. He's got that going on, right? So I've utilized some intermittent fasting over the years, over the last maybe about year or two. Nsima's been utilizing it. One of the reasons why I wanted to approach this is because both of us, when we first heard about intermittent fasting, we thought it was
wild. I thought it was crazy.
Didn't think it would work, right?
Can't imagine like not eating. I don't know why someone, or I didn't know why someone would spend time not eating food for a long period of their day.
So why did you decide to do it?
Yeah, so I wasn't doing it from a diet perspective. I heard a lot of people that worked a lot. They always talked about how they felt much more focused during their working periods. And I'm at a computer for most of my day. I do sometimes find it hard to focus. So I was starting it mainly so I could see if I could be more focused for the hours that I had to work.
The same thing ended up happening for me. I just started getting so busy with work, and I wanted to see what it would look like if I just removed food out of the equation, because I was eating first thing in the morning, and then I would eat maybe an hour after I got to work, and then I would be with somebody, I might podcast with somebody, I would eat again, and then I was like, oh man, I need to work out, but I didn't eat, so I need to. It just got to be very confusing very quickly, and so I just cut out food for a while and worked on some intermittent fasting. And where I started was 12-minute fast, 14-minute fast, and then that later developed into doing more like an 18-hour fast. What other benefits have you noticed from fasting?
So obviously it did work in terms of me being able to be more focused during my working periods. What would happen is on days that I didn't fast, I would eat some food and then I'd be thinking about my next meal. It made it difficult for me to concentrate. But the other benefits are food control or appetite control. Now, even though a lot of people may look like they're in shape and they may look like they're very fit, they might find it very difficult to control themselves when they come around really appetizing foods, sugary foods, pizza, etc.
Yeah.
I found that after I started fasting for longer periods of time, first off, I didn't feel the absolute need to eat. And then when I did eat, I was able to control my hunger levels a little bit. So I could stop eating when I wanted to stop eating. I didn't feel like I needed to eat everything around me.
Right.
And food wasn't necessarily in control of me, which I feel like a lot of people struggle with. When they start eating, they just want to keep eating meat more and more and more. And it's hard to stay in that deficit if you're trying to actually diet.
For myself, I think it helped partition out the calories. Basically, by having an eating window, it just allowed me to eat less food.
Exactly.
And for me, I actually love to eat, and I like the feeling of feeling full, not like grotesquely full, but I like to feel full, kind of ingrained into my system. Maybe it's from playing sports or football or whatever it might be, but I do like that feeling. And so I would go through my entire day. I would get through all of my work that I needed to get done, including working out. And then when I got home, once it was time to relax, that was time for food, entertainment, watching TV, hanging out with my family. And it's much easier for me to bring the food in on that time. And it's much easier for me to, also what I noticed too, by fasting and by creating this hunger, this like extreme hunger that you start to get, I also noticed that I gravitated towards foods that were healthier for me. It was so much easier, and it was so much easier to do things like the carnivore diet. It was so much easier to gravitate towards foods that would really help with my performance, because I was like, I don't really have room. I don't have real estate in my stomach to be taken up with ice cream and be taken up with pizza and stuff like that. I'm gonna eat meat, maybe I'll eat potatoes or just something healthy.
Exactly, like even myself, we always talked about how like I would grab a pint of Ben & Jerry's and eat that at the end of the night. I don't find that I really want to do that anymore, because like you just mentioned, towards the end of the day, you're wanting to eat real good filling meals that aren't gonna, I guess, just be a waste of food. So another really big benefit of this is if you're actually trying to drop body fat and lose weight, right? It's gonna be really hard to eat a disgusting amount of food in a 6 or an 8 hour fasting window or eating window, which is why it's so beneficial for people who find themselves eating all the time and struggling because they're always gravitating towards their next meal.
That did happen to me a few times where I did overeat, but you'll learn. And you're gonna learn what real hunger actually feels like, because you'll get hit by hunger. I don't get hit by it as much as I used to, but I would get hit by it 2 or 3 times a day, and it was pretty hard. The last time I would get hit by hunger was usually around the time I would eat, and therefore I would overeat. But then I would just simply weigh myself, and I would check my weight versus the day before and stuff like that. And if it was trending downward, which was my goal at the time, then I knew I was heading the right direction. I knew I was eating the right amount of food. You could also track your food during this time period, right?
You definitely can. And I think that it would be a good idea to track your food just so you can understand whether you're trying to actually gain or if you're trying to actually lose. So you can understand if you're actually in a surplus of calories within that fasting window or whether you're in a deficit of calories. Because even though, like let's say you're someone with an average 6 or 8 hour eating window, if you really tried, you could eat way too much food if you're not actually tracking your calories. So it's a really good idea to do just to make sure that you're in that fasting or that eating window, you're not eating way too much food. And it gives you a better understanding of what you're actually eating. If you never track your calories, you don't really understand what's in food, and you're just eating to eat. But if you can track for a little bit, then you can kind of have a feeling of it, and then you don't necessarily have to track every single day. You can track a few days so you understand, and then stop tracking from there.
I think some people would think their performance is going to fall off. They would think they're going to lose muscle, and for both of us, we haven't noticed any ill effects in terms of any of that. Nsima does jiu-jitsu along with lifting. You guys see me powerlifting, you see me running and doing a bunch of other stuff, and I feel really good utilizing intermittent fasting. Now, I also don't fast every single day. You can fast every single day, but it's kind of up to you. I don't think that you should always be so ferociously hungry all the time. I think that can end up being kind of a pain in the butt in the long run. But the reasons why you should try fasting, we'll just bring it back to the beginning. You can control your appetite. Controlling your appetite and controlling the cravings that we have is probably the hardest thing to do. You keep seeing those foods over and over again. I'm a former fat kid, and that's in my head. I want to eat sugary foods. I love sweets, and for some of you out there, maybe you feel the same. Maybe some of you like crunchy foods or whatever your appetite is. But this can help kill off that hunger hormone. There's a lot of other scientific research on what fasting does, and you can look that up from a lot of other people. We're not going to get too into the weeds on the science of it, but it's something that's been very effective for me. I know it's been very effective for him in our efforts to be more jacked and tan. You got anything else to add to the fasting?
The mental side of things, again, like the reason why I started, it'll definitely help you physically if you're trying to drop weight. But if you're someone who, let's say you work a 9 to 5 and you're not always trying to focus on your meal while you're working, this can be super beneficial for you because you could learn not to be hungry while you're at work, go home, then you can eat, you can do all those other things when you're not at work. But the mental side of fasting is really, really, really beneficial. And if you want to try it for that, it's a good idea to give it a shot.
Fasting can be great, but you're going to want to be careful to not fall into some of these pitfalls. What are some things that you noticed?
Yeah, so in your fasting window, you're going to find it, especially when you start, you're going to find it very difficult to not want to eat because hunger is going to hit you. A lot of ways that people generally fight that is by using caffeine. Generally, I like to drink coffee. So that you don't break your fast, you don't want to add any creamer to your coffee. You don't want to add anything that's going to actually spike an insulin response. So ideally have your coffee black. Some people like putting salt in their coffee because that actually helps you get more hydrated. Right. You also want to make sure that you drink a lot of water in that fasting window because it's very easy for us to forget to drink water, get dehydrated, and then we're very, very tired towards the end of our day.
Yeah, people get very confused on like what fasting looks like. If you're new to it, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can look up some stuff from Thomas DeLauer. He talks a lot about liquid fast. That may be something you want to try because maybe trying what we're talking about, not eating, maybe that doesn't suit you. But keeping the electrolyte balance can be really important. There's a product out on the market called Keto Vitals you might want to look into. It's just made with natural sweeteners, and it has sodium, potassium, magnesium. That could be something that helps keep you hydrated. Another thing you want to watch out for is sometimes when you fast, you go from fasting for 18 hours or 20 hours, you're so darn hungry that your appetite is insane and you just start plowing through food and you're not even chewing. Make sure you're chewing your food, take your time with it, and a lot of people even advocate having a little bit smaller meal first. You could have a small appetizers, a couple pieces of cheese or something like that. Something small, whatever it is for you that might work, a hard-boiled egg, something small, maybe while you're cooking, just to get your stomach used to the food, and when it's time to eat, make sure you don't eat too fast.
Definitely true. The stomach gets super sensitive. I remember one of the first times, it was probably maybe a week or two into fasting, I went a little bit too ham on one of my on my first meal, and I literally felt like I wanted to throw up. So something that I like to do is I like to actually have a glass of bone broth to break my fast, and then after I have that, maybe 30 minutes later when I eat, my stomach feels so much better. Your stomach gets really, really sensitive, so it's gonna be a good idea, like Mark mentioned, eat smaller meals or have something small just to warm your stomach up.
This is your meal prep right here. This is what it looks like when you're fasting. So it really helps simplify things, helps make everything easier. What's the diet? The diet is not to eat. Think about your most challenging part of your day. The most challenging part of your day might be the end of the day. Maybe you want to try fasting there. Maybe your most challenging part of the day is lunch. Maybe you want to try to fast through lunch. You don't have to necessarily do a 12-hour or 18-hour fast. There's not a lot of magical things about those hours, but you do want to try to fast and give it a shot and try it out and see if you can start to get used to it. So my recommendation is that you start out with trying a 12-hour fast at first, and you can start to extend it into a longer time period from there. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch you guys later.